my friends will tell you today that out of all my friends, and I found a way out of the ghetto, of the bad times. That was my salvation. And I tell Vince today, I tell him every time I talk to him that he saved my life one way or the other.
All right. I'm so excited. Welcome to Covert to Overt. I'm your host, Mark Chauppetta. My guest today, folks, is, I'm kind of fanboying it a little bit today, only because I am probably one of the biggest old school wrestling fans that I know. I'm obsessed with it. So here in set today is Dangerous Danny Davis.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, like this is, I had met you briefly maybe a year ago at a mutual friend's house, decided to do this podcast. I said, you know what, it would be so cool to have Danny Davis on. And then I'm like, well, if I'm going to have you on, I'm going to have to do a little bit of research. I am a licensed private detective. I do, vet people for a living. Now, I didn't go as far as...
Am I in trouble here?
No.
Do I have to? All right. Okay.
First of all, based on your book, juvenile records are sealed, so I can't get juvenile records.
I'm glad to hear that. No.
Do I have the ability to get adult records? Yes, I do, but I don't use my powers on friends, and I consider you a friend.
Well, I wouldn't find anything anyway. I was a good adult, let's put it that way.
You were a good adult. So as a wrestling fan, it's a thrill. Now, I grew up.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and what I liked about your book, and we're going to touch on your book here. You want to say the title of it?
Well, it's Mr. Rex's true story of Dangerous Danny Davis.
Right.
It's a long time in the making. The person who approached me with it, Kenny Casanova, who does a lot of wrestling books, approached me with it, and I said no at first because everybody at the time was doing autobiography books and what their experiences were in the wrestling world. So he kept coming back at me, and I kept saying no. And then we sat down one day, and we had like a 2-hour discussion. And I decided that if I was going to do a book, I was going to be honest about it. And my whole thing was that I wanted, from my background to where I ended up in wrestling and past that, was for me to write something that was inspirational to all people, to young kids, to older people. And that book, if you read it, and I'm sure you have read it,
I have,
will inspire people no matter where you come from or what background you came from. If you have a dream or a goal in life, and I tell you this from my heart, I get a little misty, that it can be achieved.
100%.
That you don't let people tell you can't do it because they told me I could never do it. Because when I was a kid, I was young, I was a street kid, I was a street fighter, etc. All that's in the book. But I knew at some point that I would become or be part of the wrestling world.
Right.
And that dream was achieved. It took me 25 years to get where I got. But I achieved it. And the people who doubted me now look at me in a different perspective.
Well, what I liked about the book, and for me, I stumbled on wrestling. I'm 57 years old, so I stumbled on wrestling probably in 1979. Saturday morning, sitting in my living room.
Right.
My hero, and to this day, I still love the guy, is Bob Backlund. Like there was something about him as a champion back then that one of my sons actually just got me an autographed Bob Backlund action figure. I'm 57 years old, for Christ's sake, and I just got it for Father's Day. So I was
great.
I was pretty excited. So that was my introduction to wrestling. But you, knowing who you were, until I read the book and I learned so much more about you, I really just knew you as a kind of a small part of the WWF, WWE universe when you were the referee turned into Dangerous Danny Davis. But when I read your book, I saw that you were there back when I first fell in love with wrestling as a roadie,
Right.
doing everything that there is in wrestling. And then I saw that you were a Brockton guy. And I've owned 2 houses in Brockton. I've had a business in Brockton for 35 years. So kind of talk to us about your roots. You were born, raised. Tell people a little bit about some of those struggles that you had in your youth and what you overcame.
Well, I just touched on a few of them. I came from a poor background. I was born in Norwood, Massachusetts, but had some years in Mansfield, Massachusetts. And as a teenager, I moved to Brockton. And the shock of moving from that little small town to that big city was, I don't know how to say it, was the beginning of being a street kid and learning the ways of the streets and how to get along. Because, as I say, I left my house home when I was 13 years old, living in the streets. I mean, I went to school, but eventually I didn't go to school. And I paid the consequences for that. And I spent some time in a place where I had to go to school. Let's just say that.
Right.
And from there, I got out. I was 16. I got out, and I went back to Brockton, which was nothing. There was nothing there for me other than the streets, the people I used to know, I grew up with. So to survive, I became a street fighter, and that's how I got along. If I needed some cash, I would go out and
Well, if you don't mind me touching on it, it does say in the book that you, because I'm curious about it, that you went to reform school. What is reform school, and do they still have that today?
Well, it was kind of a military school. It was Middlesex County Training School up in near Lowell. And you went there, and it was regimental. You wore uniforms. You marched. You got up early. There was a farmland, so you did farm work, and they had trades for mechanics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was very regimented, and it was very brutal.
Right.
If you were out of line, you would literally more than get punished for it. You would get your butt whooped.
Right. Is that something that was ordered by the courts back then?
Yes.
It was. Okay.
Yes. It was truancy.
It was a truancy.
Yes, you're an habitual truant. So you went to court, they sentenced you to it, and you stayed there until you were 16, where then you can make your own decision.
Right.
And that's the only reason I got out, because I reached that pinnacle. And
now, I didn't really stumble on Brockton. I grew up in Whitman, which is a neighboring town.
Yeah, I know Whitman.
People that watch this show, the show's larger than this area, but Whitman is known, for those watching, for the Toll House cookie. That's the famous thing that we're famous for in Whitman. So to me, going into Brockton, I didn't really go much further than the east side because I was too afraid, or my parents didn't allow me. But I started working in Brockton as a criminal investigator in 92, bought my first house in Brockton in 92, and I didn't see the city as that bad with trouble in 92. I mean, so the city had a lot of issues back in the 70s?
Oh, please. It wasn't issues. It was motorcycle gangs that were in there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember the name of it. Black something. I can't remember. And we, as kids, were runners for them. We would do their dirty work for them, and that's how we would get. They would pay us for it. We would deliver the drugs, or mostly marijuana. That's what the thing was back then.
Which is decriminalized now.
Right, but
that people were going to jail for back then.
Back then, they would come up with their motorcycles. They know who we were. And this has got to go here, this has got to go there, this has got to go. Like a runner today, the numbers and all that stuff. And that's how you made some money. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money, but you were protected by them.
You were protected by the gang.
Yes.
So it's different than now we have, Caverdian gangs, Latin gangs.
Right, they kind of dominated the Brockton era. I mean.
Interesting.
They lived right uptown, right up on Main Street, and Campello or whatever it was.
Yeah, Campello.
Yeah. And they were in and out. Of course, they were known by the police, and we would hang out at all night long, with them. And they would be out and doing their thing, and we would be part of it. And everybody would leave us alone because they knew who we were with.
Right.
I mean, the other guys but there were no. There were rivals, I'm sure.
Right.
But we, it's part of survival. That was Yeah, I guess that was it. Yeah, that was pretty much it. You're in the 70s.
Well, I mean, I find it fascinating because
I mean, there were places we went that people would own businesses, would let us stay in their basement overnight and stuff like that, and we would help out, and we were taken care of.
in the names of all your friends that I read about in the book, they all kind of had the nicknames and all the guys that you were kind of chumming around with,
Right,
and
right.
getting in trouble, and so you were a scrappy guy. I'm told not to mess with you because you got some good hands on you. I'm sure you still probably do.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, I was. I handled myself pretty good. I mean, the thing was, I was very small, in stature. I was like 130 pounds. I was about 5'9", 5'8", whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so when there came time to fight, it would always be the two little guys would fight. Not the two big guys and not the two big. So, I mean.
But they're the scrappiest guys.
We're the
guys.
scrappiest.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're looking at someone that's littler than you.
We would, come out with some bones broken and some, eyes cut and whatever. But I did all right. I mean, whoever won would get whatever they were.
You were fighting back in a time where you could have a street fight,
and
you weren't getting charged with assault and battery.
Right.
It was you leave your honor on the street,
right? Exactly.
And you don't go run and cry to the cops,
right? And if you did, you'd only do it once.
You did. You're a rat,
right? You'd only do it once. You wouldn't do it again.
So you know who when I think of you street fighting, I don't know if you know the reference, but you're like the original Philo Beto. You know who that is?
No.
You ever see the old Clint Eastwood movies, Any Which Way But Loose?
Oh, yeah, right.
And he had the orangutan.
Yeah.
And he was always out there fighting for money.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what we were doing.
So you were out there scrapping for money.
Yeah, it was it was pavement, It wasn't like it was organized. And I guess the winner would, get the rewards, like you're saying.
Well, here you are in Brockton. You're there in the 70s. You're out scrapping, street fighting. I'm sure there was many a times that Marvin Hagler probably ran past you training for a fight.
Oh, we used to wait for him. He would come by with combat boots on, running up and down the main street and stuff like that, and a big heavy sweater in summertime. And he'd have these big heavy boots on. Yeah.
So why weren't you going into Petronelli's gym and training?
Let me tell you, I tried that. I went
You did?
There was a little gym in the east side that I went and told them I wanted to box. Well, actually, what happened was there was a place down on South Brockton there, and there was a building. They used to have boxing matches there. It was a small building, and I went in one night. I said, because being a street kid, I said I want to fight somebody and I want to make some money, So the guy sat me down and said, you could get seriously hurt. Blah 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 blah. He said, come to the gym. So I went to the gym, and I went there for months and months and months, and all I did was go there and punch the bag, skip the rope, wasting my time, in my opinion. So it gets better. So I didn't do that. So moving ahead, when I got into wrestling, I know you want to take it step by step.
Yeah, of course.
But there are a couple guys in there.
I'm just interested in your I'm interested in your backstory more, just as much as I am your wrestling career.
Well, when I started out with the wrestling business, I was like a security, like in Worcester. We would go to Worcester Memorial Auditorium, and people would sneak in. They would open the door because there's all doors all the way around the building. Mm-hmm. So they hired me and my friends to guard those doors. So what we would do is anybody that tried to do it, we would rough them up and stuff like that, and we were literally getting fist fights. So there were a couple guys there, and I guess I can tell you their names, Ernie Roth and Bob Harmon, who used to watch me knock these guys around and take care of myself.
Yeah.
And he took me under his wing, and they sent me to Boston to really box. Johnny Dunn, who was trained Dick Eklund and some other people, took an interest in me and took me in and started training me there. Well, don't you know that I was doing well. I had a couple professional fights.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. Didn't do well, let's just say that. Well, there's, I'm used to street fighting. I'd get, separated. Well, anyway, long story short, everything was going fine. I figured I'd have a little career there, in boxing because, finally, well, don't you know, something bad happened. I ended up being arrested and convicted and stuff like that. So that all went out the window.
And this is all still during your juvenile years.
Right, yes.
You know,
so,
before you hit the age of 18.
Right. So then, after that was over, I went back and I got back into wrestling and that's when things started rolling.
Well, for people that don't know, Ernie Roth, and being a wrestling geek, I would
Do you know who
this.
Bob Harmon was?
No, you can tell me after I tell the.
All right.
All right, you can tell me that Ernie Roth was the Grand Wizard.
Yes.
The Grand Wizard is one of the
Most
infamous wrestling managers in the history of wrestling.
That's a whole other story.
So who's the other gentleman?
Bob Harmon was a wrestler.
Yeah.
They used to call him Beautiful Bobby.
Okay.
And the Grand Wizard was his manager. And he did very well. He was a big, tall guy from Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And he eventually got out of the wrestling end of it and got into the promoting end of it. And when Vince Jr. started taking over, they were the two guys that were going to the buildings and selling the tickets and getting the proceeds and stuff like that and going back to Vince. And they were the promoters in this area.
Wow.
For wrestling. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what I read about you and I found interesting was that you pretty much worked your way up from scratch.
Wow.
I mean, here you are guarding a door, getting in fistfights, roughing people up that shouldn't be coming in, to, advancing your way through the system. Now, this is back when wrestling was regional.
Right.
Before the big expansion in 1984 with rock and wrestling and all that.
It went from Maine to Philadelphia. That was the territory.
So you might like this. It's good for your ego. So I'm in Brockton today. I'm grabbing a sandwich at Petty's Market, my favorite place, Belmont Street.
Right.
Rocky Marciano used to hang out there. I'm talking to the girl there. She said, "What are you doing today?" I said, "I'm shooting a podcast. I have a WWF superstar coming in." She goes, "Oh my God, I grew up in the Cape, and I used to be at the Coliseum all the time, and I used to love Dangerous Danny Davis." I shit you not.
No
She
kidding.
didn't even know I had you coming in.
That's great.
So that's just a random clerk.
Well, this wrestling business, you never know. So that's why you got to, always have respect for everybody.
Do you think if, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, retired cage fighter, do you think that if MMA was around back then or that type of fighting, you think you would have jumped into that?
I tell my children that. I said I was born too soon.
Right.
I could have probably, taken the beatings I took in the streets and
You could have been a champion.
Well, I don't know about that, but I taking an ass whooping,
Right.
If I'm getting paid that kind of money, I don't know how long I would last, but that would be something. And again, it would be legal. It would be something I could work my way through if it worked out. And if not,
Well, like you said, boxing, you did a couple of organized boxing fights. Well, boxing, you got to play by the rules.
Yeah,
when you're street fighting,
yes.
you can give a little fish hook or an eye gouge or a kick to the groin or something.
And Johnny Dunn training me. Said, "Look, kid, you can't do that. You can't do this." When he was training me, you have to. It's organized. It's the parries and all that stuff. He went out to the thing and stuff like that, But I was interested in it, and I did have a couple fights. They call me Tonto. Tonto Davis because of my native background. Yeah.
So you're a Native American.
Well, I have Native American background. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Now, how tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
Are you 5'10" now, or are you 5'10" then?
No, I'm 5'10". Probably then, yeah. No, I was a little taller back then. Everybody had the inserts in the boots and stuff like that.
I was going to ask you that.
Give me an inch or two,
Was Andre the Giant really 7'4"?
I don't think he was 7'4", no. But I can't swear to it because I never measured him. But he was a big man.
Was Hulk Hogan really 6 foot?
Oh, Hulk Hogan was a big man, yeah. People don't know this, but in betweens, I was with Andre the Giant for like 5 years. I was his caretaker. I took him all around the world. Went to Japan with him and stuff like that, and made sure that his needs were met because of his size. I'd get his tickets for the air. I'd get him in the airport, et cetera, et cetera.
Did he call you boss?
Yes.
He did?
Yes. I'll tell you a quick story if you want to hear it.
Of course. That's why
he
we're
wouldn't
here.
let me buy anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't buy nothing. So one day we're in Canada, and I got a payoff. And I said, I'm buying you supper tonight. He said, no, boss, no, boss. He said, no. I said, yes, I'm buying. You always buy for me. I'm going to buy it. So we went into one of those places, the Asian places where they cook the food in front of you.
Yeah.
Hibachi.
Hibachi, yeah.
So he says, you sure, boss? I said, yeah. Well, at the end of the night, he ate like $600 worth of food. and I ate one little plate, you know.
Yeah.
So the bill came, it was like 600, but it was Canadian, but still.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So that was, he laughed. He says, you'll never ask again, right, boss?
Right.
No more, boss. I said, no more. So
That was
that was the first and last time I ever bought him anything. But he was one hell of a guy.
just a sweetheart of a guy.
He was French, as you know.
Yeah.
And he was stubborn.
Yeah.
And if he liked you, as everybody will tell you, he liked you. If he didn't, you couldn't get on the good side of him.
Couldn't get on the
He
good
would
side.
tolerate you, but you couldn't get on the good side of him.
Interesting. So here you are. You're working your way up. You're working with the Grand Wizard Ernie Roth. From what I read, you're setting up rings. Excuse me. You're setting up rings, and you're getting in there, and you're taking a few bumps yourself, and you're starting to learn, how to move as a wrestler, and then one snowy night, it all changed for you. Is that what it was?
As I was going along, there was a wrestler called Rick McGraw. I don't know if anybody
Quick
remembers.
draw Rick McGraw.
Right.
They had a whole broke his neck angle on Saturday morning.
He really did break his
Oh,
neck.
he did?
Yes. But anyway, he took me under his wing.
Yeah.
He brought me to the gyms, and we would do for Tony Altamore. You remember him?
I don't.
Well, he was a wrestler with Lou Albano back in the day,
Okay.
and then he was a referee, and he was a part of the wrestling business.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he took me under. Rick McGraw took me under his wing, and he would do spot shows with Vince's permission with younger kids because he had a school, Tony Altamore. So he would invite me and Rick McGraw, and we would go do these, and I would work with Rick McGraw, and that's how I learned to wrestle under Mr. X. So no one knew that, not even Vince McMahon. I would go to TV as Mr. X, and Vince didn't even know who I was when I was wrestling because he never would. I don't know if he would have proved it or not.
Really?
But yeah, so that's how I started wrestling. So then, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves, with the story. But the point is, what I'm trying to make is, Rick McGraw took me in as under the mask as Mr. X, and I would go to these schools, and that's how I would work out and learn to wrestle, because he was a hell of a wrestler anyway.
Interesting. And I found it interesting also that they were so good at keeping everything kayfabe back then that when you were working as a doorman, as setting up rings, a roadie, whatever it was, you still weren't really in on what was going on with the business until that one time, which I thought was funny, when you were kind of fell asleep and.
Well, you want to skip ahead. Well, I used to go.
I'm all over the place, Danny.
I would do the concessions. We had pictures, books, and stuff like that. I would go to a building, do that with the people in the building. Then I would go down, and thank God, most of the time the chairs were set up. But then I would set up the ring, and then I would go in and I'd referee, and then I would wrestle as Mr. X on the same card. Mm-hmm. Then I would go back, take a shower, and go back as a referee and do the last match or whatever. Then do the concession stand, take down the ring, load it in a truck, and go to the next town, which is maybe 200 or 300 miles away. So that's how I would make ends meet, because you get, back in the day, it wasn't big money. You'd get $50 for this job, $100 for this job, et cetera, et cetera. So I even worked for Vince McMahon Jr. in the Cape Cod Coliseum as doing the concession man. I would order the books and the pictures and all that stuff, and then distribute them throughout the cards wherever we were going, the towns. So
right.
So I did work in the office for a short period of time, along with refereeing and wrestling as Mr. X and all that, because Vince didn't know I was wrestling as Mr. X with the people I mentioned before.
Was Vince Sr. alive at this time when that was happening?
Yeah, Vince. Well, yeah. See, there's so much to say.
Yeah.
Vince Sr. was a hell of a guy too. He was a handshake guy. Back in the day, you came in, it was a handshake. You would be here for this long. You'd work with the champion, then you'd leave. Well, I had an opportunity one time. he approached me in New York in Madison Square Garden. He bought his wife a car in North Carolina. He lived in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So he asked me to drive the car from North Carolina to Florida for his wife. And he shook my hand when I got there, and he took me out to dinner when I delivered the car. And he said, "I'll never forget this." Well, that's kind of how I got in good with the wrestling business, through that little act of kindness.
It's just
people
amazing.
don't know all this stuff.
No, well, I
don't mean to keep drifting.
No,
around,
well, that's what the show's all about. We're drifting. We're riding the wave, because people that are going to be listening to this are going to be huge wrestling fans.
So Jay Strongbow,
Yes,
took me under his wing also when he found out who Mr. X was, and he had a name for me, but I'm not going to say it. But he would, and he became because he had a little bit of Native background too.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so one day we were in upstate New York, and it was winter, and it was a blizzard or an ice storm, and half the guys couldn't make it. So I had always had my Mr. X stuff with me. So he came to me in the dressing room. He said, "Dilly," that's how he called me, Dilly. I don't know what that means. But anyway, he said, "You're going to work tonight. The guys can't show up." He says, "Get your stuff on." I said, "Well, who am I working with?" He says, "You're working with me," because at that time he was retired.
right.
But he would step in, where needed, of course. So he said to me, I said, "Okay, what are we doing?" I'm all excited. I'm working with JC, big deal in his school. So he said, "You're going to go out there, you're going to listen to everything I say, and above all, don't effing touch me."
Right.
So I said, "Well, how are we going to have a match
Right.
without two guys touching
How are we
me?"
fighting without touching each other?
I trusted in him. And so we went out there, and the bell rang, and he said, "Leave." So I knew what that meant. Get out of the ring and walk around. And I'd come back in. He'd tell me to come back in, chase me around, come back in, leave again. I would leave again. He'd come back in, and he'd start his stuff and start getting mad. The people would be coming along. Then finally, at the end, he threw me into the ropes, put me in a sleeper, 1, 2, 3. So that was my first match ever in public as Mr. X. So that's quite a story.
And people didn't figure out
And they no
with the mask on, with the body type,
no, because I wore long sleeve shirts.
So did you have those tattoos
no,
back then?
I had street tattoos. That's why I had the long sleeves.
Right.
Because Vince McMahon hated anybody with tattoos. But now today it's a whole different ballgame. So that's why even as a referee, when I had them done up right, he still wouldn't let me wear that. He did that whole top thing. In the stripes and stuff like that, which I hated.
You didn't like the stripes?
Well, I liked the stripes, but not the top. I mean, it was so hot. It was heavy, thick.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd be in an arena or outside, it'd be 100 degrees, and you'd be wearing this thing, and oh my God. But anyway, that's.
Now, I'll tell you my wrestling story before we go back to yours. Me also being a former wrestler.
A shoot wrestler. We call it a shoot wrestler.
No, well, I actually had one match in the squared circle many years ago. I did.
What did you work with?
So my twin sons, Troy and Andrew, had muscular dystrophy.
Right.
So I would run wrestling shows here locally, with some of the old stars, and I would work myself into the match.
Naturally.
Which it's all part of the gimmick, and It was fun. So I think the first wrestling show I ever did, I brought in Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Oh, no kidding.
And I knew that he had ties locally to Massachusetts. I think he had a daughter or something in the area. So he came down, and to me, sitting in the locker room with Jimmy Snuka, kind of writing up the match. All right, brother, this is what we're going to do, and this is when you're going to come in the ring, and I'm going to wake up and do the Superfly Splash. So that was fun. I didn't actually wrestle. And then I had done one years later, and we brought in Jerry the King Lawler. Now, Jerry had just recently had his stroke, I think, the first stroke, so he wasn't able to really get into the match. But I decided to do a tag team match. So we did a whole work where my ex-jiu-jitsu coach turned on me, and I was going to wrestle him, but we brought in 2 indie wrestlers to kind of do the actual work.
Right.
So I was going down to North Attleboro, believe it or not, to someone's barn that had a ring. I don't know who it was, and I spent 3 months taking bumps and learning how to wrestle.
Right.
It was the hardest,
Yes.
scariest shit I have ever done in my life. Now, I've cage fought. I've gotten punched.
Yeah.
When you get punched and you don't know it's coming, it's easy to absorb. But when you have to take a bump and you got to know how to tuck your neck or not hurt yourself, it was pretty scary.
Well, a lot of people ask me that. Well, didn't it hurt when you street fight? Well, it hurts for a minute.
Yeah.
But after a while, you don't feel the punches until after, because I don't know whether it's your adrenaline or whatever it is. But I always found that people are always afraid to get beat up, but most of the time getting beat up is a punch and you're out and they kick the shit out of you.
Yeah.
After you.
Once that first punch comes, you really don't remember anything until it's over,
Right.
and then the adrenaline dumps, and that's when you start to feel the pain.
Right.
But so doing that wrestling for
I
me,
understand what you're trying to say. Yeah, it's well, to learn all that stuff. And as Mr. X, I was pretty much a uniform wrestler. I did my bumps and stuff like that. But as Dangerous Danny Davis, I had to learn all those goofy bumps I was doing. I mean, I did some goofy stuff, to go along with the gimmick. I had to do that stuff.
So take us to where, you go from referee, you go to Mr. X, and take us to where you come to the point where they, Vince, I assume it was Junior, brought you into the office and said, we have this whole Dangerous Danny Davis.
No, see, that's the misconception.
Is it? Okay, well, tell us.
Well, all right, so we're skipping along to
That's okay.
From Mr. X to...
Yeah.
We did the thing with the British Bulldogs on TV where I changed the belts.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't told to do that. I think it was an experiment to see if I could hold my own or do it, naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the thing, and then afterwards, Jimmy Hart came out, as you know, and I just did whatever came naturally, as a street guy. I said, I know how to, defend myself and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew what I was going to do, but I didn't know that they had a plan for me to become Dangerous Danny Davis. I didn't even have any idea. So when I went back to the dressing room after the match, Jimmy Hart came up and said, you're coming out as, here's your outfit, da-da-da-da-da. You're going out with me in the next segment. Because we did TV tapings 3 weeks in advance. People didn't know that, but we get an arena and we do this Saturday, next Saturday, and the third Saturday. So anyway, the rest is history. I mean, I came out and did my thing, and apparently it was an experiment because whether I could do it or not. And Christ, we ran with that for, I don't know, 3-4 years.
Well, they must have had they obviously had a lot of trust and a lot of faith in you, and you were a loyal soldier, you were a company man.
Even the refereeing, I did that all on my own, the heel referee thing. I mean, I would go out there and call a match pretty even. I mean, whatever, I wouldn't favor one or the other, but see, the other referees knew and wanted the fans to like them. Mm-hmm. Me, I didn't care. I don't know why. That's how it developed. I mean,
so you weren't like kind of thinking of a bit yourself,
no,
saying, you know what, I can get a
idea.
little bit more heat if I do this?
I had no idea. But
really?
Somebody, and I don't know who, must have seen it or caught on and said, hey, we liked it. Again. So it just developed into, Vince knew my background through Ernie and Bob, that I was a pretty tough kid and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, Vince has his own little ways of doing things. So He was probably just finding out just how tough I could be and stuff like that. And to this day, my last conversation with Vince McMahon, that's the first thing he said. He said he used to call me Fat Boy because I was so skinny when he first met me.
Yeah.
He said, Fat Boy, you're one of the toughest son of a so-and-sos that I've ever met. And he meant that with all his heart. So
what a great compliment. Yeah. What's it called in wrestling? It slips my mind when it goes from, predetermined to a real. Is it called a shoot? That's called a shoot.
And the older guys, the guys I admire, my heroes, the Lou Albanos, the Baron Ciclunas, the list goes on and on and on. Those old timers, they came before me, and for me to get into a world where those guys wrestled for peanuts, and they travel day and night, together, and have very little money to go. And when the things broke in the wrestling business, and these people were the main headliners and stuff like that, they were deserving of that. They
being compensated the right way.
They earned that. People would say, well, they've been around, but they earned every bit of that publicity and that
Right.
money and that time. And for me to be allowed into that world
Mm-hmm.
was such a compliment.
Yeah.
For me to achieve that from where I came from to where I ended up is for me one of the biggest things in my life. And I say that with all due respect, because that was back in my day, and no offense to nobody, but the people that are wrestling today, they wouldn't be allowed to carry their bags.
No. No.
These guys were giants.
Yeah.
And not only that, they belonged in the wrestling business.
And you and I both, talked about how we really don't follow it, nowadays. And one of the things that I've quickly understanding about you and reading your life story was your dedication to your family, what you did for your mother, just some of the stories. I'm not going to give them all away because you got to read his book. Some of the stories just blew my mind, that your love and your dedication for your mom and the things that you did as a kid to give a good Christmas and
as you know, that's giving back.
Yeah.
My mother had 6 children she was raising by herself.
Wow.
That's why I wasn't, I was on my own. She had no need to. That's how I felt.
Were you the eldest?
No, I had an older sister who brought me to my first wrestling match at Jack Wishy's in North Attleboro.
Right.
And
right.
from that day on, I was hooked. But anyway.
But you were kind of the man. You were the second. You were the oldest boy. You were the man of the house.
But you couldn't. There was no house. There was, we were very poor.
Mm-hmm.
Poor. Very poor. And that hurt me in a lot of ways and helped me in a lot of ways because I learned to survive. You had to. With the grace of God, we were all, have a path, and I believe my path was where I went and what I had to do to survive and to help Now, having said all that, yes, being generous and giving back is a big part of showing your gratitude for everything you've gotten. But that was not something that I dwelled on or tried to. It came natural for me to be able to say, hey, I have a little extra here. This is for you. Don't worry about it.
Did you have a hard time once? Do you remember that first time you got recognized and people and you have to stay kind of in kayfabe and you are a heel at one point? Did you have a hard time like out in public or with people when they saw you? Did you stay in character?
Well, I had some serious heat.
You had some heat.
People wanted to kill me because of my stature, one,
yeah,
and my mouth, the other.
Right.
And, but little did they know. But people have a tendency to know, don't mess with this guy. You can say what you want, and fans are fans.
Right.
And I never had an altercation with anybody outside the ring that would come to that point, to fist fight or whatever like that. I just was polite to everybody after. I mean, even though it was a kayfabe,
yeah,
I kept my distance. I knew where I had to be and where I shouldn't be. When I saw somebody down there, a baby face down there, you stay away from there, you go in this direction and stuff like that.
Were your friends in on it, or did they really think, Danny, what are you doing?
Well, here's what my friends will tell you today, that out of all my friends, and I found a way out of the ghetto, of the bad times.
Yeah.
I found a way out. I mean, I worked at that, as you know. I mean, I started when I was 16. I don't think I got a break until I was in my 30s anyway. So that was my salvation. And I tell Vince today, I tell him every time I talk to him that he saved my life one way or the other. Either in imprisonment for a very long time or death,
Isn't it amazing how, like, you just, like, I
So the wrestling business,
yeah,
literally
Yeah.
say what you want about it, and there are some truths to it, but in my world, it gave me a reason and a way out from all that bad stuff.
Well, I want to
And
thank
you should know that.
Yeah, I want to thank you because, as a dad that recently, lost a child, I tend to go back in time, go back in that Wayback Machine, that hot tub time machine, back to when life was, for me, before disease and before disability. And I still, to this day, will unwind. Now, I'm a criminal detective. I'm working on homicides. I'm working on serious sexual assaults. I have disabled children. I can't tell you how many times, thousands of hours, I will just go on YouTube and I will just go back, and you can find all those matches, whether it's at Madison Square Garden, Boston Garden, the Philadelphia Spectrum, and I'll just put it on and I'll just escape back to that time. And it's brought me so much healing, myself.
Well, I do the same. I read, recently my promoter, the guy who wrote my book, Kenny Casanova, I have a webpage, DannyDavis.com on Facebook.
It'll be all over the podcast.
And he has put all those old matches back on, and I haven't remember half of them. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
I worked with everybody that was great. All the big names, I wrestled with them. And I just couldn't believe it. Ricky Steamboat, one of the best matches I ever had was with Ricky Steamboat. I mean, the list goes on and on. You name it, I wrestled with him and I worked with him. And he's put this on my webpage, and I've got mine. It exploded. Like, I don't know how many followers I got now.
I know you. Do you have grandkids?
Yes.
Do they watch this?
Well, they're into the new stuff.
Right, but do they know that? Like,
they know. They have pictures of me and
what
stuff
do they
like
call
that.
you?
They just call me Grandpa.
Grandpa. So they know that you were a wrestling legend?
Yeah.
Isn't that really cool?
Well,
You're a humble guy.
Yeah, I am. I mean,
yeah.
Quick story. You've got time?
We got time. We got we got 10 more minutes left. Let's go.
As you know, I'm on the Native American drum, and we do events and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
yeah, tell us about all that.
Well, that's very interesting. But it's not relevant to what we're talking about.
For sure it is.
But we have many times we were honored into the New England Music Hall of Fame just a couple of weeks ago as Native American drummers.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm in a different world now, and my background has been brought to me by I call him my grandfather. His name was Donald Three Bears Fisher, and he brought me back into my native culture, and he put me on the drum and stuff like that. So that is what now I'm concentrating on. And my grandchildren see that in me too, and I'm trying to express that too. But the wrestling business, without the wrestling business, I don't know where I'd be.
Right.
That's why I'm very, very humble. And when I first joined that drum, and nobody knew for 4 or 5 years who I was, until one day somebody got on the drum, and they said, I met you somewhere before. And he's chief of the Chappaquiddick. His name is Wunanamoao.
Yeah.
Fred, his last name is Fredericks. Tom Fredericks is his real. And he said, I remember you. I know you. I said, no, man, we've never met. He said, yes, we have. I know. So another guy on the drum went home and told his kids that. He said, who's on your drum? He said, a guy named Danny Davis. And they go, D. Danny Davis? And he goes, what are you talking about, D. Danny Davis? And they showed him online. So, of course, when he came back on the drum the next time, he said, oh, we know. So the other guy says, I hated you. And so the whole thing started going like that. But he said, you're so humble. You never bring it up.
Yeah.
You never talk about it. I said, look, that was another lifetime. That was like 30 years ago. So now it's all in the open. And
but what's great about it being another lifetime is now we have podcasts, we have Comic-Cons, we have conventions, we have signings, and there seems to be a huge thirst for people my age in their late 50s that just, think of simpler times, and to them, they were a wrestling fan. That was a great time, and they want to meet these guys. They're heroes,
Well, I say this to all my fans and fans around the world. If you have an opportunity to meet and get an autograph or even speak to one of your favorites of the past in my era, don't hesitate because, as you know, we're losing a lot of us.
We are.
And recently, I've been honored with some figurines from Title Run Toys. They signed a contract with me to do Dangerous Danny Davis, the referee, and Mr. X.
Cut it out.
Yeah, so I have the trilogy coming out now. And if you go to my website, to Title Run Toys, you can pick up those figurines. And I'm so excited about it, because after all this time, someone is really recognized. And I guess they're doing all the old timers. I mean, going way back with all the old wrestlers. So
yeah, I heard Demolition talking about it on their podcast.
I mean, these guys are legitimate, and they keep their word, and they're nice guys. In fact, I'm going to do the end of July. I'm going down to do the gathering in South Carolina or North Carolina down there, the wrestling convention down there with them.
Really?
Title Run Toys, yeah.
That's amazing, and I'm going to be purchasing all three of them, and I'm going to be bugging you to sign them.
I know somebody might be able to help you with it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Now, my house, my wife makes me keep my collection somewhat limited because.
You have a collection?
Yes. Oh yeah, I have all kinds of wrestling stuff from the past.
No kidding.
Yeah, I just.
I know another guy who does that.
I have magazines. I have action figures. I have all the old school action figures that came out. The rubber ones there, and you know what?
Jack's.
Yeah.
Toys, yeah.
And to me, I had custom shelves built in my office.
No kidding.
And I just look at them.
Good.
And you know what? If I'm having a bad day or I'm sad about my son, I look at the Hulk Hogan jersey that he got autographed for me for a Christmas present.
Good.
Or,
great.
Jimmy Hart recently signed an action figure for me.
There's another story. Jimmy Hart and me. Yeah, we're still friends. I call him all the time. I talk to him. He's a great man. Great man.
So we have a mutual friend. That mutual friend asked me to pick up Jimmy Hart at the airport recently. Well, it was 2 days before Hulk had passed away.
Oh, no kidding.
No, 2 days after Hulk had passed away. Excuse me. So I pick him up at the airport. Sweet as pie. He wants to go to breakfast. I take him to breakfast. He's in my Jeep, and he asks me if he can. He tells me he just wrote the eulogy for Hulk, and he asks if he can recite it to me in the Jeep and rehearse it. I'm sitting there like in tears while he's doing it. Here's Jimmy at the Mouth of the South Heart, not only a wrestling legend but a music legend. Spilling his heart out to the Gentrys, to the stranger in the Jeep, and that's how warm of a guy he is.
He's a hell of a man, a hell of a person, and him and I got along. We still talk, and we see each other at the conventions and stuff.
Who's your BFF of former wrestling colleagues?
Jimmy, it would have to be Jimmy.
It would be Jimmy?
Jimmy Hart, yeah.
And who was, let's ask some of these questions, who was the best guy to work with in the ring?
Oh, whew. As I just pointed out, I worked with so many.
Yeah. Just give me one off the top of your head.
Well, I hate to put one above anybody else, but again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. For me to even be allowed to be in a ring with some of these guys was just an honor, So I guess, oh, Jesus. I can't give you one.
Then give me two.
Oh, boy. Ricky Steamboat. And, of course, Bruno Sammartino and his son.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's in my book.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We did a tag match as Mr. X with Steve Lombardi and myself against him and his son and a TV taping. I'll tell you a quick story if you got time.
Yeah.
We did the event.
Yeah.
And I went in, we worked with them. Of course, they went over and stuff like that. And afterwards, I got a message that Vince McMahon and Bruno want to see me in the office. Mm-hmm. So I was wrestling as Mr. X, as you know. So I said, oh, boy, this is the end of my career. I must be in big trouble now. So I hesitated, but I went in, and there's Bruno and Vince sitting there. And Bruno got up, and he shook my hand. He looked me right in the eye, and he said, I just told Vince McMahon you need 100 more guys like you.
Wow.
And so he told that story every time I met him from the years after at the conventions and stuff like that. He would tell everybody about that event. And I was so proud, and it's in my book. I mean, that was one of my. So when you ask who was that'd be the man.
It'd be Bruno.
Bruno and his son.
Well, Bruno is the man. You can't go wrong with Bruno Sammartino.
Right. Bruno was one guy that, everybody. For me, and that was at the beginning of my Mr. X career, to be in the ring with, a person like that. It goes back to what I said earlier, that the privilege of being in there with someone like that, it makes it all worthwhile.
Right. So, all right, you don't like the negative, but who was the stiffest in the ring?
Oh, Jesus. I don't think anybody was really stiff with me. I mean, George Steele.
Yeah.
Now, George and I went around and around and around. We had a program. We worked a program together. Jim Myers is his real name, of course.
Yeah.
He liked it stiff. And him and Bruno liked it stiff. They worked, when they worked stiff. Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're a wrestler and someone stiffs you, you stiff them back.
Right.
You give them a receipt, as it's called.
Yes.
Or it was called. So our first match, he got a little rough, I got a little rough. And it just went on from there. Afterwards, he said, "You want to talk to me?" I said, "Yeah, I want to talk to you." I said, "You didn't mind a little." He said, "I love it."
Wow.
I love it. So the stiffer you are, the better it is. I mean, he's not saying knock each other out.
Yeah.
But legitimize, legitimize the business,
That's amazing.
And he was, and we weren't, after that, we had a program. He did a program with me. We went all around the United States and stuff like that.
Wow.
And he had a doll, I don't know if you remember, it's called Mine.
Yeah.
So.
Mine.
He was sick.
Yeah.
At the end, he was pretty sick. And so I would go in the ring, and I'd knock him down, and he'd go outside the ring, and I'd grab the doll, and I'd actually wrestle the doll at these spot shows. I could never do it on TV, but I would slam it, I would drop elbows on it, and I would cover it, and count, just a foolishness any foolishness I could think of, and people loved it. Not all the time, but when he wasn't feeling good, that's how we would kill time.
That's amazing.
I would tear the head off, and
instead of eating the turnbuckle, right? You were ripping the head off.
Well, it was a way to, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but God rest his soul. He was stiff, but it was understood.
Yeah,
it was a gimme.
So WrestleMania 3, 96,000 people. 98. Sorry, I don't mean to.
Come on, those 2,000 count. No, it's supposed to be the biggest house ever.
What was that like, taking that cart out there?
And people ask me that all the time. And it goes back to what we originally talked about. To come from where I came from, and that was it. That was the pinnacle. I mean, how much more can you, and then to win over the Bulldogs.
Right.
I mean, come on. Well, how much better can life be at that point in time than to be in front of all those fans? And that was another thing. It was like 3 weeks or 4 weeks after, they did the thing with me starting me as Dangerous Danny Davis. It wasn't long, a couple of months, and then they throw me in to one of the biggest events in history. Again, is it a test or what? And Jimmy Hart will tell you today, for me to catch that megaphone and do the thing and throw it back in front of all those people and all that tension and all that electricity going on, it just showed you stuff,
Well,
but I got to say this about the British Bulldog.
Yes.
And he said, look, you can hit me with that thing, hit me with it.
Really?
There's 98,000 people out there. Hit me, and I did.
You cracked them.
Yeah, but then knock. But I mean,
Well,
talk about being stiff.
There's so much more I could talk to you about. This interview is kind of like a little foreplay. So if you want to get a little bit more action about Danny Davis, you gotta check out his autobiography. It's a great book, and I'm a slow reader. I'm like a short bus reader. And I read your book, and like my wife's like, "Are you gonna get out of your recliner?" Like I dove into it, and
You can't put it down.
I couldn't put the damn thing down.
It's a good
especially being it's an amazing book.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say before we wrap it up, I think it's admirable, and I want to commend you as a person that you chose the dedication to your family to kind of get out of the business and be a dad because you were on the roads all those years.
Well, again, I did what I have to do in life for the people you love and for people around you who deserve, and you know, I don't have to tell you.
Yeah. Well, you're one of my childhood heroes. Now I'd like to call you a friend, and I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And we're going to probably do this again someday. Make sure you get his book. Check out his Facebook page, his website. We're going to put that all on there, and we're done.